Today we'll be taking a look at what would have happened if Franklin died in the father-son mission at the beginning of GTA 5's story. So let's just say that in the father-son mission, Franklin would miss the jump, fall straight onto the highway, and die right there. This would result in Michael being extremely guilty, essentially screaming at Jimmy because it's his fault that Franklin died, causing even more problems in Michael's family dynamic than we had in the original, which I didn't think was possible, but that's a thing. But how would things go from there? Well, we know that after this, the whole thing with Michael pulling down Madrazo's house happens, and don't worry, that would still happen as it did in the original, as at the end of the day, it was Michael's idea to do that. But I do imagine that Michael would have a lot more trouble when dealing with Madrazo on his own without Franklin there, and I think that he would get beaten up a lot worse than he did in the original. He would still have to do the jewel store job just without Franklin, and after this, we know he would still have to start working for Davey and Steve, and would eventually be found by Trevor. That of course would not change, and their bickering probably would be a lot more frequent than in the original, and they would likely get close to literally both of them dying at various points throughout the story, like in the Merryweather heist or the Three's Company mission. Not only because Franklin was good as straight up backing them up on every single dangerous mission that they went on together, but also because when shit hit the fan, when things got heated, he was the one that was able to stay the most level-headed and stop their usual arguments, which we know there are a lot of. And it kind of goes without saying that Trevor would never meet Lamar, and when looking at the long stretch mission, for example, I think it would be something that Lamar and Stretch would narrowly escape dying in. However, the same cannot be said about the Hood Safari mission, sadly. See, the Hood Safari mission was a setup for Lamar, as we know in the original, by Stretch, and who was responsible for figuring out that it's all a scam and that they're about to get jumped? Well, Trevor. Who was there as backup? Well, Franklin. So without them two there, Lamar would probably, as naive as he is, he would go there on his own, and there's simply no way that he would make it out of Grove Street alive without Franklin or Trevor, as I said. So Lamar would die in the Hood Safari mission 100% pretty much, and when looking at the Blitz Play mission, it would still have to happen, and with this one, considering how much of a dick Steve Haynes is, he probably would not provide any backup for Michael and Trevor, so they would have to go for that one alone. Also, without Franklin there, I don't think that the two would do any kind of work for Devin Weston, because I feel like that the reason that Michael ever agreed on that was because of Franklin, because in the first scene where Devin Weston pitches the idea that's on screen right now, Michael says that he'll let him know that he's interested, and of course he is referring to Franklin when he says this, because he knows Franklin is really experienced in the stealing cars department. But Michael would still regardless do work for Solomon Richards, and that would play out pretty much the same, at least until a certain point, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Right now I want to ask you to subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the video if you're enjoying this video right now. That would help me out a lot. Also, feel free to check out my membership tiers if that is something you're interested in and you want to support the channel a little bit more. Thank you. As for Trevor and Michael, they would still have to go into hiding after the whole thing with Martin Madrazo, and where they kidnapped Patricia and all that, and the whole thing with the Polito Bay heist and the monkey business mission would remain the same, just without Franklin. I do imagine that in the monkey business mission, they would probably have someone else going with them, maybe Agent Sanchez or something. Why I'm saying this is because unlike Three's Company or whatever that mission's called, Steve Haynes I don't think would bring back up to that mission, because him and Dave are not going on that mission personally. But when it comes to monkey business, however, we know that in the original they both go on that mission, so that's why I think maybe he would get someone else as backup on that mission. That's just my thoughts. However, shit is just about to hit the fan, and the trio of Michael, Trevor, and Lester would start planning the UD heist, but it would have to be put on hold after Michael gets kidnapped by the Chinese gang, and of course that whole fallout with Trevor happens. That would still happen just like it did in the original, and Trevor would soon after this, unlike in the original where Franklin calls him, he would actually get a call from Lester directly asking him to save Michael. But we know from the original that at least at this stage in the game, Trevor wants Michael dead, so there is absolutely no way that he is saving him at all, and meaning that the Chinese gang would likely kill Michael, ending the dreams of the big score ever happening, as Lester would cut all contact with Trevor in fear of Trevor going after him next. And by the time the end of the game rolls around, I imagine Trevor would be a mess, as he would probably constantly remind himself of the times when him and Michael were actually good friends, also remembering his family. Speaking of which, they would likely leave Los Santos in fear of whoever killed Michael going after them at some point. So Trevor would soon, due to the guilt and everything else, he would probably get more and more uncautious, he would screw up more, and I think that this would actually lead to him probably getting set up and ambushed, in the end killed of course by a hit squad organized by Steve Haynes, who we know wanted him dead in the original, and that hasn't changed. And that would pretty much be the end of Trevor, and Lester would just go back to doing the crazy shit he's doing anyway. And the person that would be in the biggest pickle as a result of the whole thing would probably be Solomon Richards and his studio, which would be closed down by Devin Weston, no doubt about that, and he would never even see his movie Meltdown get released, which is kind of sad. And the winners in this scenario would definitely be, of course, the bad guys: Steve Haynes, Devin Weston, Wei Chang. And Wei Chang, you might be wondering why, but Wei Chang would of course now be able to expand his business into Blaine County, which is what he wanted to do, and of course now that Trevor's gone, he can do that really easily. And of course Stretch would win, as he would pretty much stay alive. I don't think there's a bigger win than that. I mean, all of them would stay alive, but that's the only way Stretch would win. He would stay alive, that's it. So all in all, this goes to show how important Franklin is to the plot, and that without him, all of the antagonists would win, the main characters would pretty much all die, and things would end completely differently. And with that said, I want to thank you for watching this GTA 5 What If. I hope you liked it. Until the next video stream, bye bye.